there's actually human beings that exist in this world
Yeah.
that have what they're looking for or
Yeah.
what they truly want. It's just a matter of like finding that person or being the person that would attract the
Yes.
higher quality relationship first.
What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the Raised and Redeemed podcast. I just have to let you know, I have been promising an episode with Jamie Bennett answering some of your questions about a recent episode I had with him about Orthodox Christianity. And then I was also supposed to be having an episode with my priest, but things keep happening with the schedule, so they are pushed back to just a little bit later date. That is still coming, but because we had an opening in the schedule, I'm so excited about today's episode with Ashley Williams. We're going to be talking about dating shows and a Christian perspective on them. So, just a confession, I love dating shows, and my husband used to get so triggered thinking that I watched them daydreaming about other men, but that is just so not the case. In fact, every time I watch them, I'm just more and more grateful for what my husband and I have, the fact that he's not like those other guys, that him and I connected on our values. And we are both committed to our marriage because, first and foremost, we know that we made that commitment to God first. So I just wanted to have Ashley on to talk a little bit about her dating show. She is the host of a Christian dating show called Not My Type, which does things way different than the popular Netflix dating shows. I think a lot of these shows seek out contestants that are bad at relationships and therefore really good at TV and good for TV. And some of them strive to change them for the better, but all of them are lacking God as their critical factor in making that change. So a lot of times these relationships just don't end up working out, despite all of the workshops that these shows maybe try to put these contestants through. So as I mentioned, we have Ashley Williams on the show today. She is a TikTok influencer and host of the Christian dating show called Not My Type to discuss the current popular dating shows, a Christian perspective on them, how she runs her show, and the things that would make for a more successful love match. Her first episode on YouTube got 99,000 views so far, and her TikTok clips of the episode got over 1 million. So I think it's pretty obvious that the people want more Christian, wholesome dating shows like this. So I'm so excited to have Ashley on the show today. Welcome, sister. I can't wait to have this conversation with you.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to chat about all things love today.
Yeah, of course. So we're just like a little like rubric. We're going to talk about all of the worldly dating shows, and then we're going to explain your dating show and like how it compares and contrasts against the other ones. But something you and I were talking about was the whole finding the one concept, and we just wanted to debunk that a little bit. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit in your experience, like how that has maybe added pressure or anxiety in dating, and just what your Christian take on that would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole life, I thought that there was just going to be like one particular person for me. And if I don't find that person, then I'm like completely missing out on love and the type of like love that I would hope for. And so it
Mhm.
adds this pressure in the past and even now of like, is this person the one for me? Is there, someone else out there that would be a better match? Is there someone who would be
Yeah.
more compatible personality wise? And especially seeing a lot of couples on social media that they seem to just know that that is their person and they just have this like best friend vibe, and it just seems like there's nobody else out there for that person that's like a better fit.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they don't struggle with doubt or never have. And so in my personal experience, that has added pressure for me because I have never really had anybody talk to me about this subject, and I've never really heard people talk about relationship doubt. And I try to
Mhm.
like think of things in a different perspective. Like, okay, I have to take into consideration, I've never seen a marriage that I admired. I've rarely seen marriages, first of all. I grew up with like baby mama, baby daddy drama, this person cheating, this marriage
Yes.
is like tumultuous. Like that's all I've seen. So of course, there's like no real positive association in my brain with marriage.
Yeah.
And so to even like entertain that thought, I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna be married, it has to be like the absolute perfect person that's like never gonna trigger me, and I have to know and have zero doubts that this is the person for me.
Mhm.
And and I just have to keep in mind like, okay, given what I've seen or like a lack of what I've seen, I think it's totally normal that I would have hesitations towards certain things. I've battled with thoughts of like, should I even get married? Would I even like be a good wife? Maybe God just wants me to be single forever. Like I would be fine if I never got married. Especially seeing a lot of Christian girls who are like already praying for their husbands and they're like single and they like um are so intentional about it and they pray for marriage and they are so like wanting that because I'm not like that. And I
Mhm.
have to literally remind myself, like, oh, I should probably pray for my boyfriend. Like, I literally have to remind myself, like, oh man, like, I haven't prayed for him in like a long
Yeah.
time. And then I see these other girls on social media who are like writing letters to their future
Oh my
husband.
gosh, that was me. That was literally me. Yeah, no, I get it though. Like when you see this and then you also see the worldly way of relationships, how it
Mhm.
make you think like, do I even want this at all?
Yeah, I'm
Um,
like, if that was for me, wouldn't I like want to do stuff like that? Wouldn't I want to like intercede for my future husband? And wouldn't I like be so like running to the altar like if this was for me? So because I'm so like eh, about it, I'm like, I struggle with doubts. But the thing is, it's so funny. Before I became a mom, I literally used to say to my family, like, I don't think I want to have kids. I don't think I want kids. Like, I literally used to say that to my entire family. And I remember being pregnant with my daughter, and I was at my baby shower, and I asked my friend, I was like, girl, like, I am not like a baby person. Like, when
yeah.
I would see kids, I would have no emotions. Like, I wasn't like
Yeah.
motherly or like maternal. So I literally remember at my baby shower asking my friend, like I was basically asking her, like, girl, am I gonna like love my kid? Because
Mhm.
I didn't have like those feelings when I would see
Yes.
children or like other people's kids. Obviously, I'd be like, oh, but like I wouldn't really want to like hold the baby.
That's so me. So don't even feel bad because that was so me as well.
Yes. So I was like probably like 8 months pregnant. Camila was probably in my belly, like, like,
Is
oh
she
my
gonna love me?
is she gonna love me? Because I'm literally like, yeah, am I gonna love my baby? Like at my baby shower, like asking my friend, and my friend was like, yeah, you'll love your kid, you'll love your kid, and that was like comforting to me. And then same thing with and I don't want to go too far into parenthood because I know this is about dating, but same thing. Like I was not like the mom that was like super like I had no plan at birth. I had no plan for the hospital. I didn't look up and research products. I was just winging it. But
Yeah.
the thing is I absolutely love being a mom. Like I love it. And I didn't think I would, and I didn't think it was in my personality. And I'm like so
Yeah.
shocked that like I am so motherly with my daughter. I'm so loving to her. I take it so like serious, and I'm not like you know I wouldn't say I'm like super like mommy where it's like my whole entire life, but because for some women I feel like it is like
Yeah.
it's just calling and they're just so great at that stuff. So I wouldn't say it's like my main gig, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Obviously my daughter's like number one, don't get me wrong. But I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm describing them well. So
No,
anyways,
I
I
get it.
say that to say I was thinking this morning, I was like, you know what? I thought that I wouldn't be like I thought that I wouldn't enjoy motherhood or like that wasn't for me, but then I
Yes.
ended up loving it. And I just figured it out as I went. I was like, I feel like that's probably the same thing for marriage. Is that
Yes.
that
Yes.
same mentality where beforehand I'm like, oh, maybe it's just a whatever thing.
Yeah.
I bet my right arm I will love being a wife and I will be so great at it and it'll be so fun because that was what happened with motherhood. And so I'm like, I bet that's what's gonna happen.
You know what? It could just be like this doubt and fear about the unknown because
Mhm.
I was the same way. I was the kind of girl that prayed for my husband, but this was only after I became a Christian. Before that, like I was, a crazy party girl that liked the more casual, non-commitment. Like I
Yeah.
wanted somebody to love me, but I wasn't the kind of woman that would attract that or really be good at that
Yeah.
yet anyways until
Mhm.
I found God and then I was like, okay, I can't mess around anymore. So this started to make me desire finding my husband. And then I remember having so much stress that like there was only one person that would be good for me. So I went on all these dates, like with all these different people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, none of this is going to work. And then finally I
Mhm.
realized like until I found somebody that I aligned with values on, like nothing would last long term. So yeah, they may be nice, they may treat me better than all the past guys and like go to church with me and all these things, but if we like aren't really in sync about like those deep core values, then
Mhm.
it's not going to work long term. So I did make the list and that is how I found my husband was I made that list and shared it on Instagram and found him and I was always praying for him. But because I had this idea about the one after we got married and we got married right away. So this is like a whole like I'm very impulsive. It was so crazy. Like we got married 2 weeks into knowing each other in person, 2 months after like starting our online relationship. And I doubted our marriage for the whole first year. And I remember thinking, like, God, did I make the wrong choice? Did I not choose like the right one?
Mhm.
Um, and I remember there was a Bible verse about how like the man who doubts is like double minded and he gets thrashed around in the wind. And I was like, yeah, literally, like I have this mental turmoil and I just wanted to have peace and confidence in
Mhm.
my answer. And I can just see how like this concept of the one, like will literally cause like a war zone in our mind of thinking and doubting and worrying and all these things. But I think a more Christian perspective on the one is that there's not just like one set person for you out there that you could be compatible with, but the moment you get married to that person is your one. That
Mhm.
person becomes your soulmate. You become one flesh.
Yes.
So finally, I learned to just water my own dang grass and pray for my husband and like have peace in my commitment, and our marriage just began to flourish. It did take like a year for us to get to
Mhm.
that point, and now he is my best friend and I'm confident he's my one. But I had so much doubt in the beginning because of that. The one, oh, you got to
Yeah.
find the one.
I just want to talk that same exact scripture that you just quoted. It was like, if you're those who are double-minded should not expect to receive anything from the Lord because they're tossed by like the waves and the wind of the sea or whatever. That
Yeah.
literally just came to mind the other day, and I had to repent because for those who don't know, I'm in a relationship. I have a boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
And we that scripture, God spoke to me so heavily because I sometimes will want to be married. I sometimes will not. I'm so like wishy-washy.
Mhm.
Um, like maybe we shouldn't be together. Maybe we should. Maybe there's somebody else out there better for me. Maybe there's somebody who I would enjoy life with more. Like, you know what I mean? Like compatibility wise, like maybe someone who's got
Yeah.
more of my sense, like all these doubts and all these things. And sometimes I'm like, I do want to marry the guy I'm seeing, but then sometimes I'm like, no. But then the Lord, I had to repent because the Lord brought that scripture to my mind. I'm like, I have not even like set my heart on, do I want to be married? Yes or no? Like, I have been so tossed by the wind and the waves that I'm like, how do I expect things to progress in this relationship if I'm so like not even clear about even
Mm.
if I want to get married? The answer is I do want to be married. I don't want to be alone for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. Even though I like to think I'm like independent, like I could be by myself, like I'd be fine. I think I know that I do want to be married. It's just I have to set my heart on it and then not be so worried about like the details in between. But I do
Yeah.
want to speak on something that is a trend that I feel like is causing so much chaos in the body of Christ right now, which is controversial. Some people are like yes about it, some people are no about it, but that's
Yeah.
kingdom spouses. And
Oh.
feeling like God has one particular person for you. And when you see that person, you have to like cling to that person and like
Hmm.
Um, and and even if you don't see any interaction or fruit between you and that person, you're supposed to just like have faith and like focus and like pray for that person, intercede for that person. That concept has tripped me up and so many other people up. But me personally, I have had a personal experience with that trend
Hmm.
and that the pressure that it adds to that God has one particular spouse for you that's like predestined and you're supposed to meet that person only in this like particular time frame, and like even if you know that person's your husband, you like don't say anything and then you just wait. And like people, girl, I've heard stories of people who've waited for years, prayed for somebody for years, moved across the country for a man who like didn't even
Yeah.
show interest in them. And it's all because there's like this pressure of like there's one person and you're
Yeah.
supposed to completely like zoom in on this one person, and if you don't, you're gonna like miss your assignment for like life. I don't know, it's just like this concept that I feel like has a lot of men and women like chasing their tails
Yeah.
around and centering their like attention and focus towards somebody who actually might not even be for them. Because there's been times, girl, where I'm like, is this guy my kingdom spouse? Is this guy my kingdom spouse? Is this guy my kingdom spouse? And then you start to see like prophetic words like on the internet,
Yeah.
like your kingdom spouse is going to call you next week. They were
Yeah.
blind to the fact that you were their Eve or you were their Rachel or whatever, but their eyes are going to be open. So then you
Yeah.
start to get these confirmation words once you start to think like, am I crazy for believing this guy is like the guy God said he had?
Ashley, this sounds a little bit like New Age Christianity.
Yes, girl, it's crazy. It's so crazy. And I was so and so many people are doing it that it's like this I don't know. It's like what I think the term is limerence.
Okay.
Limerence is when you don't like the situation you're in now. So you create these like fantasy type things in your mind as like an escape or as like an anticipation, like anticipatory thing. I don't know if that's even a word, but you get
Okay.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's been times where I'm like, this guy is for sure my kingdom spouse, and even though we have minimal interaction, like he's gonna, then there's like these prophetic words that is like your Adam's gonna wake up from his slumber and realize. So there's all these women and men who are waiting for a person who is showing like little to no fruit or little to no interest or little to no whatever, and then there's all these words from God that people are releasing saying, just wait, just keep, whatever. He's
Yeah.
gonna wake up. Your Cinderella story is gonna start. Like you
This
just,
is why I don't even trust like a lot of the TikTok Christians. Like I don't like all the prophetic words and
yes, girl.
especially that. Like I don't know. I think it's becoming a dangerous thing and
It really is.
yeah.
It's like a, you want a certain outcome, so you're gonna like form your mind around what you want to
Yeah.
hear and what,
Manifestation.
yeah, and then you feel like it's from God because when you're in a state, I realized this. There were times in my life where I was in a state of discontentment or being discontent. I was in a state of being discontent, and I would hear from God all these things. And all these things I would hear from God, it sounded just like God. And it would always be something that was like guiding me towards something I wanted in my life.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it sounded so similar to God, but it had me just chasing my tail.
Hey, everybody. First off, thank you so much for watching. Secondly, if you're enjoying this conversation, please support this show by liking, subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with a friend. And now back to the episode. So kind of tying this in, like we're kind of talking about like I want to say the deception in
Mhm.
the modern West
Yeah.
church, you
Mhm.
know, the body of Christ, like the deception that's kind of going on there. But a lot of these dating shows like don't even talk about God or honor God at all. I do hear
Mhm.
God thrown around sometimes, but it's usually like they are referring to the new age God or like
Mhm.
their version of God or the, different gods, but not like the God, like capital
Mhm.
G, the
Yeah.
God of Israel. Um, so many of these shows, it's like I see the cast, like the first thing they're talking about is their zodiac signs and they're just more like spiritual people than Christian people. So that's a big red flag when like watching these shows. I used to feel guilty the fact that I even like watched dating shows, because
Mhm.
it can be more worldly. But I feel like when you do have like a clear understanding of God and how He says relationships should be, and you have good discernment, um, that these shows won't change your mind, but it's almost like an ethnography, like observing and studying people and the way that the world does
Yeah.
things and why they're so wrong and so off. But
Yeah.
like somebody with a more vulnerable mind, this could be dangerous because they're watching these shows thinking this is how they should be or how their relationship should be or how
Yeah.
they should look or approach things.
Mhm.
If you're not mature in yourself and mature in Christ, watching these kind of worldly dating shows could be a really dangerous thing. So I kind of want to start talking about some of them. We made a list to go
Mhm.
through, and I wrote down the Wikipedia premise of each of them. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to start juicy with Too Hot to Handle.
Okay.
Um, I know, like, most Christians would probably say don't watch this one at all because it can be very, very pornographic. It can be very triggering to somebody who maybe has a pornographic kind of addiction. I don't find that it impacts me that way because I never struggled with that. I mostly, like I said, I watch and I observe these people's drama and like
Mhm.
how it could be more successful. But so here's the premise of Too Hot to Handle. This is one of the West's most popular shows. Hosted by a traffic cone shaped virtual assistant named Lana, the show revolves around a group of adults, all whom primarily engage in meaningless flings and are unable to form long lasting relationships, who are placed together in a house on a tropical island for 4 weeks. Initially led to believe they are on a fictional raunchy show, the contestants are later informed by Lana of the true purpose behind their stay, and that they are forbidden from any kissing, sexual contact, or self gratification for the duration of it. The contestants start with a $100,000 grand prize, and that gets reduced anytime a rule is broken. Alongside these restrictions, the contestants are put through various workshops aimed at aiding personal growth in order to foster genuine connections between them. You haven't seen this one, right?
I haven't.
Okay.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, so the first couple of episodes of each season are like terrible, like very raunchy because these people came on, they think that they're going to have like this sexy summer, they're going to get a hookup with all these people and then they find out like they see Lana, the traffic cone, and they find out like, "Oh, you're not allowed to do anything physical or you get fined financially for it." And so the idea is that then Lana sends them on all these workshops and they're supposed to learn how to make more genuine connections with people and have deeper relationships. However, what I've observed from this show is the workshops are so new agey. Like every coach that comes in, they're leading them on some kind of like inner self meditative, just like that occulty, like very trendy kind of new age workshop.
Mhm.
And so these people like they don't really change. Like the end of the show comes and the relationships don't last because there was no true change in their heart. Like God didn't
Mhm.
take over the throne of their heart. So it's like these worldly, lust driven people. And then they get into these maybe some new age philosophies, but then no true change happens in these people's lives.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the premise of that show, but we don't have to go into it too much since you haven't seen that one.
I
Um,
love that you were talking about observing human behavior because I am the exact same way. Sometimes I will watch things or listen to things not because I want to have any sort of like judgmental attitude or anything like that, but I just am curious to like observe
yeah.
like human behavior and to make note of like what is fruitful and what is not fruitful. And it just
Yes.
helps me to like organize information so I know like what to avoid or what do I like or what do I appreciate.
Or
So
what are people doing out there? What is like hurting the kids?
yeah, exactly. Like it totally is like more than anything for me now. And I like how you mentioned like maturity is so important because it so is. Like in the past, I totally could have watched that and been so easily influenced. But now
Yeah.
that I have like a sense of like self and I'm like, I know who I am, I know who God called me to be, like, and my identity is pretty like solid in that. I am able to watch stuff and not let it like stick to me. And I like
Right.
how you mentioned how when you watch it, it makes you appreciate your husband like that much more. That is so real, girl. Like watching that stuff, I'm like, wow, I can never complain about what
Yeah.
God has blessed me with because this is like what's out there, and people don't even realize that the bar is so low.
Oh my
I used to
god.
be just like that too, which we can talk about a little bit later if you want, but the bar is so low, and then people don't even realize like there's actually human beings that exist in this world
Yeah.
that have what they're looking for or
Yeah.
what they truly want. It's just a matter of like finding that person or you know, being the person that would attract the
Yes.
higher quality relationship first. Um
That's key right there.
yeah.
Yeah, and this kind of show is really sad too because it's a lot of people like the kind of people who get on there and like brag about their body count and how sexual they
Mhm.
are. And what I've found is like I was just like that. I mean, I didn't brag about it, but I messed around a lot because I had zero self-worth.
Mhm.
So it's these really sad, broken people that they don't even realize that they are. And I
Mhm.
kind of went through that same trajectory of like being that party person who did all that and then realized how broken and messed up I was. And like
Mhm.
that's the reason I was doing all of that. But then
Yeah.
I wasn't really ready to like change, like pick up my cross. So
Yeah.
that's why like the new age workshops are more easily acceptable by people like that because it doesn't require like this true like drastic
Yeah.
change and like dying to yourself. So let's go on to Perfect Match. We've both seen this one.
Mhm.
This one is kind of interesting because it brings on people from all the different Netflix
Mhm.
dating shows. So the Wikipedia premise says that the series features contestants from other Netflix reality shows who pair up and compete in challenges. As they compete to form relationships, the most compatible couples will play matchmaker, breaking up other couples and sending them on dates with brand new singles they'll invite into the villa. Anyone without a match at the end of the night must leave the villa, and at the end of the series, only one couple will be chosen as the perfect match. So, because you have seen this one, I've noticed they have the same kind of new agey workshops as Too Hot to
Mhm.
Handle. Let's talk about Harry, like the
Yeah.
infamous Harry from the dating show.
First of all, I want to mention I only watched the show because of Jess because that is my girl,
I
and now
love her.
I understand now marketing when they're talking about like brand loyalty because I literally only watched that show or like that series because Jess was in it and from Love
Yeah,
is Blind, and I was like, that is my girl. I resonate with her. She's a single mom. I'm a single mom. We're like, I'm a
been
few
through
years
hard
better.
stuff.
Yeah, and so I was just like, I'll watch it for her because I love her and I like follow her on
Yes,
social media and I'm like so invested. She is like my little like bestie and she doesn't even realize it.
I feel you.
So I actually skipped the first like three, four. I didn't even watch the episodes, girl, that she wasn't in. I skipped it to like halfway through the season, and I only watched it from like when she entered, and
Okay.
then from forward. And then even when I started my first episode, which was like episode 5, I had zero premise of what the show was about. After I watched like the first 2 episodes, I was hooked. I was like, this is a good show. I was
It
like,
really
I
is.
binged watched it, I think in one night or two. And oh my gosh, girl, I was so emotionally invested. And I had to
Yeah.
actually repent after watching that because I started to like dislike people that I don't even know. I was like,
Melinda?
I was like, I was watching that, eating my ice cream. I was like, I cannot believe that girl did that. I was like, oh
I
my
know.
gosh, she sold this, she sold that. I had to repent and be like, God, I'm so sorry that I am talking about people who you love
Yeah.
in
These are
them.
real
These
people.
are real people. God loves them just as much as he loves me. And
Yeah.
but yeah, Harry.
I think that's why I love dating shows too and like reality shows because it's real people. Like
Mhm.
some of it might be a little scripted here and there, but like this is real people and like their real lives. You know, it's
Yeah.
not some like Hallmark movie like made up plot where people are just actors. No,
Right.
we're getting to see a real glimpse into their lives.
Mhm.
There's something very vulnerable about that. But I love Jess too, and I don't want to jump ahead, but like I think Love is Blind is one of the best dating shows out there, and I love that it is so popular because
Mhm.
I'll get to that, but like this show is so good. And so yeah, I was so excited to see Perfect Match this season because Jess was on it. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, how did she end up with Harry? Of all people, Harry. And then of course he goes and does her dirty, just like he does. But I actually like I felt for him and I don't want to do the whole like empathizing with the perpetrator thing that I've
Mhm.
always done. Like that's why I've gotten
Yeah.
my heart broken by bad boys my whole life until my husband.
Mhm.
But I could see that like Harry genuinely wanted to make a change and he's going through these new age workshops, like thinking he's like becoming a better man. And you can kind of see how he's matured since Too Hot to Handle, even though you
Yeah.
haven't if the listeners have seen like you'll know like he's matured a bit since then.
Mhm.
But God still hasn't taken over the throne of his heart, so he's trying to make these changes on his own strength.
Yeah.
And therefore, what is the word? He falls back into the same habits and mistakes of his past because nothing has really changed in his heart. So he broke our girl Jess's heart, made us all mad.
Yes, girl, I am the same way. I so was empathizing with him. Like I could see him trying to put his best foot forward, and I literally could see from like one episode to another. Like I actually think he like loved her or like really
Yeah.
wanted to be. Here's the thing. I think he wanted to be the man that she needed and wanted.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of men, even in my past, that wanted and had the genuine desire to be the man that I needed and wanted, but unfortunately, if it's not who they are, that's just not sustainable, and it's only a
Yeah.
matter of time before it crumbles. And I do
Yep.
actually have empathy for people like that because I can't imagine wanting certain things in life and being so close to having it or like having it in your grasp and then just losing it time and time again because you don't
Yeah.
have the character. And that makes me have compassion and feel like, like empathetic. But at the same time, it's also their responsibility to
Mhm.
make the necessary changes. And once they have the awareness of like, okay, I am this way, taking the time separate to grow and mature and to be the
Yeah.
person that can sustain a long-term relationship. So I do have empathy, but then I also have to keep in mind like, okay, we're all adults and it's up to us to make that change. And yeah, like I do feel compassion with people who they don't have God in their life and they just feel like they don't have like the tools or it's just like it falls away, goes in one ear and out the other. So I do have a sense of
Yeah.
compassion and empathy for people because I see them as just like little kids on the inside who
Yes.
want love and who want to have that and just don't know how because it wasn't like shown to them how to have these characteristics and these
Yeah.
traits and how to be a man that thinks long term and makes long term based decisions and stuff like that.
Amen.
And so I do
Yeah.
have a little soft spot in my heart, but also I can't stay there. I gotta like keep it pushing though, because I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not my responsibility at the end of the day. And it's not these other women's responsibility. Like I was thinking, I was thinking about Jess the other day. So we talk about these people like we like know them
I
personally.
know.
I was thinking about my girl Jess the other day. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? The man that she needs probably is at like Home Depot right now, like measuring wood. Like he's
Yes. Not on a dating show.
Bro, he's not gonna be on TV. He wants no part, probably, of any cameras or any sort of clout or fame or exposure. He's probably like at someone's house doing a quote for like general contracting. Like the kind of man that she needs is not on TV. Like he is at Wawa getting his midday coffee in between
Oh my
clients.
gosh.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's the kind of guy that would be
Yeah.
so normal and down to earth and like humble and just, and like, I don't know, that's the kind of guy that's like we should be wanting. But
Yes.
the rush, the butterflies, the anticipation, the could I find like my one true person by participating in this, that like limerence, how I was talking about that like kind of
Yeah.
fantasy, like, oh, if I just do this show or this or whatever. Yeah, and so not to like jump too far ahead, but I always when I talk to cast members for not my type, I do tell them to like, I do kind of frame things where I'm like, okay, you're gonna be going on a date, but there's no pressure that for you to like fall in love with this person, and it's obviously whatever God's will is, and I try to be like very clear to them about that it's a relaxed environment and to not
Mhm.
go into it like
Thinking
expecting
it's
or
the one. Yeah.
thinking it's the one and putting pressure on it, and it's like make it or break it, or like this is like their opportunity to like, because I mean it could be, which is great,
Yeah.
but I do try to like frame things in a way where it's more going into it relaxed. It's more about, if anything, just talking about the Lord, letting
Yeah.
the light of Christ shine through you, um,
I
and
love
that
that.
having it be like kind of the main point versus you're meeting the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. To just kinda go back a bit, like, talking about that compassion because 'cause you've had guys like that in your life, like,
Mhm.
I was just thinking, like, I was that person, like, I was the one that would, like, mess up a relationship or accidentally get drunk and cheat, like,
Mhm.
that was me in my youth, and it really did take God coming into my heart to really change me into being the kinda woman,
Mhm.
so I was like the Harry, I was like the Harry
Well,
until
I
God
had
changed
my
my heart.
time like that too. Well, because I didn't have like, and sometimes I cringe. Like I have to actively like forgive myself sometimes and be like, it's okay that I like. Not that the things I did were okay, but it's like I have to have grace for myself because I look back on things I did in my younger years when I was like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, even 22.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm like, I would never do those things now, but I just didn't have the character to like respect people who I was with. I would be like so disrespectful in certain relationships. I definitely cheated and I never fessed up to it, which is terrible.
Yeah.
I like was like deny, deny, deny. I had no character to withstand difficult times, difficult situations, integrity. To I was always like a good person. I wasn't like a mean person ever. But when it came to relationships, I just did not have the character, the values, the
Yeah.
like longevity things to make something work. So I would just come in, like there were certain people who I dated and I came into their lives and I feel like I was just like a tornado in their life. And I like hurt them really bad. And so I ended up actually probably like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I ended up sending some really heartfelt messages to two of my exes who I
Mm.
dated in my younger years when I was like 19 and then like in my early 20s. And it was after I had started doing therapy.
Yeah.
And I started realizing certain things that happened in my life that caused hurt in me and caused me to have bad self image and stuff like that. And then I started to think about the people that I had dated and how things that I did may have set them up for like future trust issues or so. Anyways, I ended up sending a few messages to my exes, two of them, apologizing and just being like, it was not ever you. It was 100% me. I was so wounded when we were together. I was so like hurt in my own stuff, and I'm sorry that it poured out onto you. And I just made sure that they both knew that it was not a reflection of them in any way, and it was 100% like on me that
Yeah.
I did the things I did, or I was disrespectful, or I had cheated, or I had just lacked integrity, or
That
yeah.
can be so healing. Like, I
Mhm.
know there were some people back in the day, like, if I would have gotten a message like that, could have really brought me peace.
Girl,
Um
because sorry, because somebody I dated in high school did that for me. We had
Mm.
dated when I was 16, and I really, really loved him. His name was Zach, and I really cared about him. And our relationship ended so abruptly. There was like no closure, and it really, really hurt me. Like, out of all the relationships I've ever had, that was the first time when I was like 16 where I
Yeah.
was like heartbroken. I was really sad. And it was just like no closure. And then when I was like 18 maybe or 19, he had sent me a message on Instagram, and he was like, "Hey, I know this is so random, but I just wanted to tell you I'm so sorry about how things ended between you and I didn't like how I was, reflecting certain parts of my family. And
Mm.
it was just issues with my dad coming out, and it was nothing about you. And I just want to say I'm so sorry for how things ended. And it was just, stuff
Wow.
I was going through." And I remember and this was years later, when I got that message, that had meant like so much to me. Like, I don't even think that guy knows the impact that message had on me.
Yeah.
Like,
I,
that
like, dream about being able to do that for other people, but my husband, like, has such strong boundaries against me ever talking to any of them ever again. But a lot of
Yeah,
people don't know, I was engaged before, like, for
me
4
too.
years, and I, like, destroyed him, and
Mm,
I sometimes still have dreams just feeling so bad, about what
mhm,
happened and how that ended and the things I did and thought were okay because I was the goddess at that point and just living so selfishly and in my new age pagan witchcraft world. And
mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I love that you're not married, so you were able to
Yeah, so
reach out and do that.
this was right after me and my baby daddy broke up, and I
Mhm.
was just single and just, like, praying and really pressing into God, and I started doing therapy and stuff like that, and I was like, I just came to the realization of, like, wow, there are some people that I have hurt, and because of
Yeah,
my high school boyfriend sending me that message, and how, like, I don't even know why that was so healing for me, but it
yeah,
truly meant the world. And I've had times where I'm like, I want to message him and be like, when you sent me that message like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, like, that meant a lot. Like, I honestly want him to know that, like, which I don't think I can now because, yes, boundaries. I am seeing somebody now. But
yeah.
if you're out there, just kidding. If you're
I know, for real. I can't reach out directly, but I'm sorry.
If you're watching this somehow, I want to
Yeah.
say, Zach, shout out to you because your kind action spilled onto other people. The kindness was carried forward, and so yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah. So I did have to take accountability and apologize because, girl, I was like tearing families
Yeah,
apart. Like,
me too, girl. I was in a whole
oh,
adulterous relationship that led me to God. So,
girl, like,
I don't
I
know.
I have
I don't
that.
wanna go too into it.
I know, because, girl, sometimes I think back on things I did, and I'll be like sleeping, and I'll just like remember what I did like 8 years ago,
Mhm.
and be
I am
like,
not the
and my
same.
heart just like drops, and I have to be like,
Yeah,
okay, you know what, Ashley, like, have grace for yourself. At that time, you had no skills. I had
yeah,
no skills. Nothing was instilled in me to like know better. I had no tools to handle certain situations that I was placed in,
yeah,
and so I just have to have like grace for my younger self,
yeah.
and like,
I've had friends remind me too, like, "You're not God." Like, these
yeah,
are grown-up people, and that this may be the kinda situation that brings them to God, like, it was you
yeah.
getting heartbroken, experiencing this hardship that led you to God. So, like, don't try to be their savior, let them,
Yeah,
like, they're grown people,
yeah,
and that kinda set me free too. I was like, "Okay, right, like, I
yeah,
don't need to say anything."
that is true. Like, they are responsible for their own healing as well. Yeah. So
Yeah.
even if I did cause damage, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like
Sorry.
insurance cards. Like, sorry, my insurance can't cover yours. Like, you gotta
Yeah.
just like out of pocket, like, do your
Yeah.
own recovery.
Oh my gosh. What's up, you guys? I'm so excited to announce a new Raised and Redeemed merch drop. We took our apparel to the next level this time with our new Running to the Cross design that you can order in a crew neck, hoodie, oversized tee, or even on your new favorite coffee mug. Check out this design and more on raisedandredeemed.com to order yours and support the show today. Okay, so Love Island. Love Island. You haven't seen this one, right?
Mm-mm.
No. So we won't go too into this. Love Island involves a group of contestants referred to as Islanders living in isolation from the outside world in a villa, constantly under video surveillance. To survive in the villa, the Islanders must be coupled up with another Islander, whether it be for love, friendship, or money, and the overall winning couple receives a combined $50,000. So the only thing I want to say about this too is like this Wikipedia description made me realize too that people come on to these shows with all different intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they literally said for love, friendship, or money. And sometimes it's clout too, like the
Yeah.
clout of being on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the reason some of these relationships don't work out is people are coming on for all kinds of different intentions. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
another reason I love Love is Blind is you know that their intention is to get married. The next one to just kind of I don't know when my baby's gonna need to eat again, so I'm kind of gonna
Yeah.
speed. I'm speed
Me
mode now.
too.
Yep. So the ultimatum. This one was kind of weird for me. It feels a little like begging, you know, chasing, like you were talking
Yeah.
about in the beginning. It's a self-proclaimed social experiment that wants to see how many couples will get married when presented with ultimatums. So a lot of times it's couples that have been together for like 10 years. One of them doesn't want to get married, but I think they're kind of each other's comfort zone and they don't want to break
I've
up.
seen an episode or two of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't love those hosts for I think it's The Ultimatum and Love is Blind, Nick Lachey and
Nick
his
and Vanessa.
wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, like they feel like they love to like stir the drama pot. Like I love the show and the premise, but I don't like love the host's
Can
like
I
heart
say
posture.
something? And Lord forgive me because I know this probably is not pleasing to God. Nick Lachey reminds me of the guy who like used to be hot but just hangs out with like hot young people. And,
Yes.
like I still got it's like those super seniors or like the men who like were really hot in high school who still like linger around the high school even though they
Yes.
graduated like 2 years ago. It gives off like, hey, I'm cool. Like it is
He
like,
loves
bro,
the
you're
attention. Yeah.
I know sometimes I watch this stuff and I'm like, Lord, I have so many thoughts that I'm like, is so not Christian of me, but I'm like, this guy is like creepy old uncle that like needs to like move on to a different show.
At least with Love is Blind, it's him and his wife there.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes they've like come at cast members and like given
Yeah.
them drama, and I'm like, well, you're
Yes.
literally the
Did you watch
host.
the
Like,
reunion of Love is Blind where Trevor's like text messages with his bro, why
yes,
do you feel so bad for him? Everybody was like so like coming after him and he was like and like honestly I get it. Like oh sorry, I don't want to like go off track
it's
but
okay.
like I have like so much compassion for him because when he was explaining it, I was like, okay, I understand. Like I get it. Like we
I
have like
know.
comfort relationships that aren't real, but we like don't want to be
Yeah,
alone like in the past or whatever.
yeah,
And when they were like coming at him in the reunion and like calling him out and like accountability and this and that, and you could like see in his eyes, he was just like a little puppy,
mhm,
like borderline like gonna cry. Everybody was
yeah.
like
I feel like the other cast members, like they can maybe say what they want, but then the hosts, I feel like should be neutral. Maybe
yeah.
that's just me. I
And they
don't
just like well, I'm like, why would you just publicly like but also too, I think that they don't want the show to have a bad look and to think and for the show to get hate. Like it's representing Love is Blind poorly and that therefore people they might lose viewers
yeah,
or they people might not have people want to be cast members and stuff. So they have to like publicly be like, this is not okay to like kind of keep their
yeah.
reputation good so that the brand is still like a good image and it's not like deemed as like
That's
some
valid.
trashy show. You
Yeah,
know what I
there's so
mean?
much we don't know.
So much, yeah.
So, The Bachelor, we don't need to talk extensively about this. Everybody knows this is kind of like the OG. I
Yeah.
just have a cousin who is like, she wants to apply to these shows. She has a friend who applied to The Bachelor and got denied actually because they said she wasn't like about the drama enough. They needed somebody
Mhm.
with a little bit more like spice. And so it makes you think too about the kind of people that get accepted for the show is people who make for good TV. So it's like, how
Yes.
successful of a love match are we
Yeah.
really after here if that's the
And
prerequisite?
can I say, from a production standpoint, I've noticed this even in casting for Not My Type too. It's so interesting being on the back end and like kind of on the other side because they're there are so many factors, and it's like having these factors, but then also honoring God, because yes, I get it. You spend all this money and all this time and all this planning and all this preparation and all these people and all this crew to come out. You don't want to have it go to waste.
Yeah,
You
that's true.
want to make sure that you're getting the content that you need in order for it to pay off. At the same time, though, it's like for me, like when I'm casting, there are times where I'm like, okay, I'll maybe meet a really lovely person, girl or guy, but I have to determine, are they gonna be okay on camera? Is it going to be like a vibe, or are
Yeah.
they just gonna be kind of like blah? I don't
Yeah.
need drama, but there is some level of like presence that needs to be there in order
Yes.
for it to not just be like two people awkwardly sitting in a studio, just being like, hi, hi. You know what I
That's
mean?
so valid. Yeah, I
Like,
get
there
that.
does have to be a level of, I am a person. I know who I am in Christ. I know who I am. Like, I have a presence to me where I can show up. So it's been interesting experience being on the back end, because there are so many lovely people that I meet, but I
Yep.
do have to make like certain determinations of like, okay, that person is just way too shy, or that
Yeah.
person is just really soft spoken, and I just don't think that they would be able to hold their own.
On a
Um,
show.
yeah, especially being in
Yeah.
front of the camera, because you and I know, even us who are on camera often, it's still somewhat hard to
Yeah,
be yourself.
nerve-wracking
It's
every
nerve-wracking.
time.
Yes, being on dates, first of all, people who you've never met, and then being in an environment that's, like, a little bit unnatural, like being in
Yeah.
front of cameras on nights and having strangers around you, and then also meeting someone, yeah, like, you don't know. Being on a blind date is nerve-wracking to begin with, let alone, like, with all these other factors, so it takes a special type of personality to be able to do it, and then to still have fun with it and to like thrive. So
Yeah.
it is interesting, like seeing on the other side production standpoint, but yeah, I won't dwell on this too much because I know we're like kind of
That's
nearing
okay,
the
and I wanna get to your show too, so I'm just kinda gonna fast forward through some of these
yeah.
others. 90 Day Fiance, is that the one you said you loved?
Yes, I used to watch it like back in the day all the time, but
Okay.
now I don't.
So it says 90 Day Fiance follows couples who have applied for or received a K-1 visa available uniquely to foreign fiancés of US citizens and therefore have 90 days to marry each other. So I didn't understand that it was foreigners and that's why they had the 90 days
Hmm.
until cuz I haven't watched this one and then I read that and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense why
Hmm.
it's 90 days." Um I don't know, do you want to comment on that one at all?
Honestly, it's really interesting to watch, because basically what you're watching the show for is to see if the intentions of the other person are genuine or just to get their citizenship.
Oh.
So it's filled with a bunch of like kind of nerdy guys dating and marrying these hot Colombian mommies. And then everybody watching the show was like, that girl would not be with that man if it weren't for, the fact that she's gonna get a citizenship in the United States after this. It's like a
I
lot of
see.
really hot girls from other places coming to the United States, and vice versa. And so
Okay.
it's the drama of that show is just like the viewers make assumptions that there's no true love there, and it's all for bad intentions.
I
And
see.
so like that's kind of like the storyline. I think they probably purposely pick people where it's like matches that aren't like,
It's good TV,
it's
right?
good
Like,
TV. It's good
okay.
TV. Yeah. So
So, Married at First Sight. The series features 3 to 5 couples paired up by relationship experts who agree to marry when they first meet. The experts the show started off with included a clinical psychologist, sexologist, sociologist, and humanist chaplain. Starting with the 4th season, the experts were a pastor and marriage counselor and communication and relationship expert, which, though I haven't seen the show, sounds like they made a good change in experts from all the, the humanist chaplain to like a marriage counselor and pastor. That sounds a little
Mhm,
bit more productive of a thing.
mhm.
Had you seen that one before?
I have seen it. I've seen every single season.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I will say that even though there's like a pastor on there, the advice is not necessarily it's not biblical.
okay.
It's not biblical advice from this guy because obviously they want to appeal to a wide variety of viewers. So even though there is a pastor, so I'll watch that show and I'll watch his advice and
Okay.
I'm like cringing, but I love that show. They kind of do what Love is Blind does, where they have these people, they find their values, their deepest core, and then based on that, they match them with somebody who they feel like would be really compatible. But sometimes that just goes like really south because they'll put this like hippie with this guy who's like really political, thinking that they would be a good balance, but their values are completely separate and it just clashes. And that is one of those shows where they tried to it started off genuine and like cute, like Love is Blind, but then eventually it just turned into like trying too hard to make it good TV, so it like
Okay.
make it interesting that it actually made the show have a bad reputation. They're like, you guys are like putting people who are completely incompatible in real marriages because I think they get to nullify their marriage after a certain like within a certain time frame. So they do get really
Ah.
married, but according to
Huh.
like their state that they're filming in, the people can choose to like nullify
Okay.
marriage. So yeah,
So, okay, so maybe not biblical advice, even though there's a pastor on that show.
yeah.
So, okay, good insight on that one. The next one, Love on the Spectrum. I haven't seen like a bunch of this. I've seen a few episodes. I thought it was really cute and wholesome. But then
Mhm.
as I was researching it, I don't need to read the premise because it is, what it sounds like. But the show was critiqued for not including like the LGBTQ agenda. So then they started sending the contestants on same-sex dates, which I think is a little predatory just to make good, culturally
Mhm.
appropriate, politically correct TV. Like, I think that
Yeah,
sounds predatory to do to these people.
yeah.
Um, that's all I'm gonna say as a Christian on that
I
one.
yeah, I love that show. It wasn't until like the last season I watched where I was like, I started to feel convicted in my heart watching it because I felt as though they were taking advantage of certain people or certain like
Yeah.
I was like, how much of this is wholesome? How much of this is like exploiting like
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
on the spectrum? Because there were like certain scenes that were just so inappropriate or personal. Like they just like shared clips of like a guy reading a really intimate poem to his girlfriend. And it was so intimate that it was like totally stuff we should not have been hearing as an audience. Like their
Yeah.
parents probably would barf if they like heard that poem.
Oh,
It was
no.
very tender, very
Yeah.
intimate. And it was talking about like intimate things. And as I was watching that, I was
Understood.
like, that is absolutely not something that should have been shared on national television. That is not something appropriate for like this young man or this young woman to have millions of eyes watching this intimate moment. But I
Yeah.
know that it made for good TV. And
Yeah.
in that moment, I was like, how much of this is genuine, like, desire to represent this community, and then how much of this is, like, exploiting them? And
Yeah. That's a
that
good
made me feel a
perspective.
little bit convicted in my heart that, like, you know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
The next one is Sexy Beasts. I haven't even watched Sexy Beasts, but like I've seen like the trailers for it and okay, so the show's format involves one eligible single, male or female, and three possible suitors, all four of which have been made over with prosthetic makeup. Each beast will then go on a date with the singleton. Over the course of the show, two will be eliminated, at which point their makeup is removed and their real identity is revealed for the first time. The remaining person is then chosen as the winner to go on a second date. So, like I said, I haven't seen it. Looks weird. It sounds kind of like it's not based on looks and lust, though, so it could possibly be a good thing. I don't know.
It sounds like they're trying really hard. It sounds
Yeah,
like they ran out of ideas in the conference room, and they were
of
like,
dating shows.
yeah, it sounds like they got that on, like, ChatGPT. They were like, "What is a totally unique dating idea that nobody's
Uh-huh.
ever done before?" Yeah, that sounds like reaching a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so Love is Blind, my favorite.
Mhm.
So for 10 days, 15 men and 15 women date each other in pods where they can talk to each other through a speaker but not see each other. They are initially paired in a speed dating format, but later can choose to have longer dates. The daters may extend a marriage proposal whenever they feel ready. A couple meets face to face only after a marriage proposal is accepted. The engaged couples then head to a couples retreat at a resort for 1 week. During this trip, they spend time getting to know their partners and have their first opportunity to be physically intimate. They also meet the other couples participating in the experiment. Following the couples retreat, the engaged couples move to the same apartment complex in the city where they live for the final 3 weeks of the experiment. While at the apartments, they meet their partners' friends and families and learn more about their partners' lives, exploring issues such as finances, recreation, personal habits, and their ultimate primary residence. At the altar, each participant decides whether or not to say I do and get legally married. So this one is obvious. Like that was a long premise. This one is intricate. Um, I just love this one though because, like I said, I do feel like it is like one of the most wholesome, and
Mhm.
it's not based on looks and lust. It's not like this island with people in bikinis. It
Mhm.
feels like normal people who have come onto the show, and they all have that goal of getting married. I don't think there's a prize fund of cash or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think that these people are the most serious. This is where we first saw Jess. Izzy was also on Love is Blind and then went over to Perfect Match as well. And
Mhm.
he was way too mature for all of the people on Perfect Match because
Yeah.
he was coming from that Love is Blind place of like
Yeah.
genuinely looking for like a love match in marriage and things like that. Um, so I would say that this is one of the most successful I've seen as far as worldly dating shows goes, because the participants are actually getting to know each other based on internal things.
Mhm.
But I think we should take it a step further and make sure that people align on values for the very casting, kind of like what we've talked about and how you run your show. Do you want to go into Not My Type and explain the premise of your show, and what you think would make for a more successful love match on a show?
Yeah, for sure. So, Not My Type is a Christian dating series, and It's designed to explore if having Jesus at the center of a relationship is enough to create compatibility in ways where you might not have typically picked that person out if they're in a group, in a crowd, but just
Mhm.
exploring the idea of dating outside of your comfort zone. And it honestly is inspired by me and John, the guy who I'm seeing, because he's totally not my type. And he's not the kind of guy I would have ever picked first.
Yeah.
Um, I'm totally attracted to him. I think he's so handsome and so wonderful. But I always just went for like the bat boys, the tattoos, the love bombing, the rush, the like initial adrenaline, stuff like that. And when I met John, he is totally not my type. He's just like this
Yep.
all American, East Coast, New Jersey guy with no tattoos, comes from like a nice Catholic family, like grew up, had a nice childhood, like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Just totally not my type. And I've been so blessed by the relationship, and it inspired me to create Not My Type, because I'm like, wow, I wonder how many people are out there with this exact idea of who they're going to end up with, and they're missing out on blessings that could be right in front of their face because they're waiting for their exact type to come along. And God might put somebody in your path that maybe is not your typical cup of tea, but it could be really good for you and really
Yeah.
healing for you. And is what you need, and you don't even know you need it.
Yeah. I'll just say my husband was not my type at all. So I actually love that title for a Christian dating show because you just never know what God is going to present you with. And a lot of
Yeah,
times your type is like, you can explain it like physically, you
yeah,
know, but God is so beyond that. He
mhm.
knows like what our soul needs, what our heart needs.
Yeah, for sure. And when I was in my whole like kingdom spouse space, I remember the people who I thought like, oh my gosh, is this my kingdom spouse? Is this my kingdom spouse? Those were the people who were exactly my type. Those were the
Mm,
people who were like, oh my gosh, they have the tattoos. They were a certain essence, a certain vibe, certain swag to them. And I
yep.
was like, oh my gosh, is this my kingdom spouse? Is this my kingdom spouse? And it was just me chasing my tail. When I
Yeah.
gave a guy who was not my type, and it wasn't like I heard this booming voice from the sky say, "This is the one I have for you, Ashley." It was like, here's a nice guy out of my comfort zone. Let me explore this relationship. And it wasn't this like love bombing adrenaline type situation. It was a very slow and steady,
Mm-hmm.
gradual pace, which
Yeah.
I was not used to. And I would have never sought that out for myself. And so the goal for Not My Type is to explore what it looks like to date outside your comfort zone and to kind of try something that you aren't used to. Because what I'm used to is not healthy. It was not healthy. It wasn't
Yeah.
sustainable. It was very flesh based. And when I gave something a try that was good for my spirit, I was so blessed by it. But
Mm,
um yeah, and so my heart behind it is to just encourage Christians to step out of their comfort zone, try something new, have an open mind because there might be blessings all around you and you're just missing it because you're clinging so tight to like this is the exact kind of guy, look
yeah.
wise or personality wise, that I want to marry. Um, I definitely don't think it's wrong to have your preferences as to who you're attracted to or the type of person you're attracted to. There's nothing wrong with that. And for some people, they want to wait until they find the exact person that it checks off all these physical boxes, personality boxes, stuff like that. Because even personality wise, John and I are very different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was never exposed to certain ways of thinking that he has, or lifestyle choices, or like just even like little things like growing up at the grocery store. I would always see my mom get the cheapest spaghetti sauce available, and then like going to his family's house and seeing that they get like nice spaghetti sauce. They care about like the flavor. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I did not start using a meat thermometer until I met John. I didn't even know it existed, that I could like find out the temperature of my meat to see if
Well,
it's
I love that for you.
no, I'm not kidding. My whole life, because like I just would just like I see growing up, you just cook it an extra 10 minutes. Doesn't matter if it's dry as long as it's like doesn't have like salmonella. Like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just
Yeah.
and so like little things like that, or like you can enjoy the flavor of food and you pay a little extra, but you get to have like higher quality, like little things like that. I
Yep.
have never been exposed to in that regard, and so I'm so blessed to experience this new kind of lifestyle and just like little things that are so different from what I'm
Mhm.
used to.
I
Um,
love how, like, on the show too, that you have, the participants explain what they think the other person might look like, and then
mhm,
it's completely not that, like, the people who showed up to go on the date were completely not what they were expecting physically.
mhm,
I love hearing your voice in the background, like asking them questions and like I don't know, the show is just so fun and wholesome and I could really see it growing into just being an amazing thing if you were to get more funding to it and this
mhm.
could actually like blow up. Do you happen to have a list of some of the questions that you have them ask each other on the show? Because I love those as well.
Yeah. So, well, for the show and for future casting, because I'm actually casting for season one for an entire set of 8 episodes. So I'm already planning filming in Dallas because God has been blessing me with connections in the industry and this person and that person. So I'm like this close to being
Nice.
able to like go film for an entire week in Dallas. So praise God for that. It's been a long time coming. Like after I made the first episode, immediately I was like, more.
Mhm.
But it was like it's been a journey to make more episodes, and I'm just so ready to get after it. But God has been teaching me a lot. There's been a lot of like potential investors and this and that, and God has just been teaching me a lot of like business stuff. But praise
Yeah.
God, we're like this close. I've already begun casting for Dallas. I ask them now. I ask them in the cast interviews. I ask them if they feel comfortable enough to make conversation with the person, or if they need question cards to help guide the conversation, or if they
Okay.
need me as a producer to chime in, because I want to make sure when they're on their date that they have fun, first of all, that they vibe, but that they also don't feel like panicked and that they can't think of like what to say or what to ask. So
Yeah.
definitely having them share their testimony right off
Mhm.
the bat is huge. So that's something that in filming, we did that in filming and Not My Type, the first pilot episode, but then also in the future, because what the viewers don't see is that that was actually only like 20, or not even 20, that was like only 12 or so minutes of 40 minutes of them talking. So they actually sat down and they talked for almost an hour.
Wow.
And then we took the most interesting clips from their conversation and then put it together and then put that out for the audience. But there's a lot of footage that went unseen, because sometimes the conversation might fall flat or it just wasn't that engaging of a question.
Yeah.
So,
No,
so
I love that you have them start with the testimony because that's how my husband and I started. Like, people are like, "How did you guys get married so quick? That's crazy." Well, because we didn't waste time. Okay, A,
yeah,
it is a little crazy what we did, but B, we didn't waste time. Like, I told him my testimony right away. I asked him about his relationship with God right away. If you can get to like the core like
right,
that really quick,
yes.
I think that you can bond with a person at a way deeper
Yeah,
level.
yeah, it definitely creates such a strong connection, and it's so vulnerable, and
Mhm.
you can like it just makes you feel connected to a person so much more and faster when you can connect on something so huge in your life.
Yeah.
So, even with like future episodes of Not My Type, um, I am making it a point to not only make it physically not their type, but also that could be personality wise. So, for example, I really want to have like a city boy with like a country girl, like a cowgirl. You know what I mean?
I
Maybe,
like that.
maybe
Yeah.
they are physically each other's type. Like maybe he does like brunettes and she does like blonde guys. You know, personality wise, like if they have differences in personalities or like lifestyles and stuff, I think that that would also be interesting. So it's not always just like physical, where like you're going to
Mhm.
get the opposite of what you're attracted to. I think also there are different aspects of like people not being your type that I definitely want to explore. But I always ask everybody in casting, I say, what are your deal breakers? I always ask them about like denominations. Like,
Mhm.
do they have any boundaries as far as like they don't want to date people from certain, because there's just some things where it's like that if the incompatibility is too like glaring, it's not gonna be fun for anybody on the date. There's not
Yeah. Yeah.
compatibility. They already know off the bat they're just so different in those regards. So there are questions I ask in casting to get to know them, what they're looking for. I always try to be so clear. This show is called Not My Type, because people see Christian dating show, Christian dating series, and they're like, "Yay, I'm gonna meet like my perfect guy or perfect girl." And I'm like, you understand though, this is called Not My Type, so you will be out of your comfort zone. So I do
Mhm.
ask about their dating history. I ask about their previous relationships. What has their type been? Um,
You know what? And at the very least, like, they will learn something, and the viewers watching will learn
mhm,
something as well.
mhm.
Like, the kinda conversations you should be having on a potential date,
Yes.
the questions to reflect on, and, the main question that the show seems to ask is, like, "Is Jesus enough to possibly form a connection beyond
Yeah.
those things. So it
Yeah.
kind of gets that variable singled out to test that specifically
Yeah.
alone.
And we can testify from our own experiences. Yeah, that like putting Christ at the center will create bonds with people, like with your husband and with the guy who I'm with. Like, yeah, having Jesus as like the foundation and as the center point did create a kind of connection that was so
Yeah.
deep and withstood certain trials and tribulations and doubt and stuff.
Yep.
So I do want to encourage, and honestly, the biggest thing behind the show that for me is that I loved in the pilot how you could just see Christ like shining through
Yeah.
the participants, and they were just genuinely such good people. The girl was so amazing, the guy was so amazing, and that's like what I want people to see so that their standards are like higher. Because had I watched something like that when I was a baby Christian, my standards would have been so much higher than they were. I just did not know men like that or women like that like existed. You know what I
Yeah. Or
mean?
even before I was a Christian, I would
Yeah.
have been like, oh wait, like this is pure. This feels good and like safe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. My standards were just so like non-existent or low. And so my biggest thing is that people would walk away from it knowing that stuff like this exists out there. Conversations like this can happen on a first date. There are guys like this out in the world. There are women like this out in the world. And like you don't have to settle and just like keep pushing until you find like people like this. And so that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest things is like when I talk to people, I'm like hearing their character, I'm hearing their heart. I'm thinking in my head, are they going to be a good representative for like a impressionable woman or man watching this? Like, are they
Yeah.
going to be a good leader?
That's huge.
Yeah. So that's like the biggest thing for me.
So I love it, and I don't want to cut this short at all, but my husband and baby keep peeking in the door at me.
You're
So
done.
they peeked in twice.
Just a little side eye, like, need you.
So could you just tell the listeners how to find you, how they could support you, and yeah, where to go watch Not
Yeah.
My Type?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can watch Not My Type on YouTube. I'm currently working on having it be brought to different streaming platforms. Yay, praise God.
Yeah.
So that is in the works. We are casting for season 1 out in Dallas. So if you or anybody you know are out in that area or that surrounding area, we would love to have you apply. There is a link on all of my social media where you can fill out a casting form. It shouldn't take you more than probably 20 minutes to fill out. We're looking for all types of men and women, ages about 22 to 32-ish, but that is totally flexible as long as you're over 18.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement. But yeah, if this resonates with you and you want to participate or know someone who does, that is so helpful. There are God is totally blessing this process, so there are opportunities to donate if you want to. That is also in my links, but there's no pressure to do that because the show will continue on with or without that, praise God.
Praise God, yeah.
um but yeah, and just sharing the word about it, engaging with it is always great. But yeah, I just look forward to making more
Yay, I can't
unfiltered
wait.
content. Yeah.
Being a nursing mom, I sit in one place a lot of the day watching shows. I've been watching Good
Yeah.
Luck Charlie reruns. I
Oh
don't know if
my
anybody,
gosh.
but I love dating shows and I've watched most of them, so I can't wait for Not
Mhm.
My Type to come out. So, thank you so much, Ashley, for being on the show today. I loved having you, and I'm looking forward to this series in Dallas, Texas. We can't wait.
Woohoo. Thank you. Thank you for having me.